How great would it be to get up close and personal with the beauty industry heroes we love and admire, and to ask them, how did you learn to do what you do? I'm Chris Baran, a hairstylist and educator for 40 plus years, and I'm inviting all our heroes to chat and share the secrets of their success. This week's episode is with a charming lady who I believe is one of the icons that wins over the hearts and minds of absolutely everybody, every person that she talks to. So I want to just give out some of her creds here. So I think it'll probably well give it away almost right at the beginning, but she was an early believer in balayage, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And she couldn't find a person who shared her passion. So she found a chemist and developed and spent years researching and developing this brand and her own techniques called Sunlights. It's an American-made, 100% woman-owned, family-owned, and she's built it in, now catch this, a multi-million-dollar and a multinational biz. And I love this. And as soon as you hear me talking to her, you'll know what she's about. She was voted as the Maverick of the Year in Startup Company by Cosmoprof. In 2017, she was the recipient of the Jerry Gordon Salon Business Leadership Award and was Atlanta's Small Business Person of the Year. My friend, the Bali Lama, Candy Shaw. Now, let's get into this week's head case. Candy Shaw. I mean, OMG, I have to say, I've been a distant admirer for years now, and just to get to talk to you in person, I think really we've sort of passed each other by the night, and we've been, when I finally got into the room next to you when we were at Beauty Changes Lives and on stage together, it was just a real joy. And when you see somebody and you always imagine them, you see them in this light, and then all of a sudden you meet them in person and they're just a regular human being. And that's what I just got an instant connection with you when we met at Beauty Changes Lives. So I'm just absolutely honored to have you on here for a couple of reasons. And I'm going to throw this because, I've often been introduced as Chris Baran, the name that the person that can say in 10 words what other people can say in one. But, you come from a long family lineage of hairdressers. So I want to kind of talk about a little bit about that. And we're going to just go a little bit back and forth on this. But I think even just before I talk to you just a little bit about when I first got into hairdressing, reading Modern Salon. Now you have to imagine this young kid in Canada, Humboldt, Saskatchewan, town of about 3,000 people, moved up, big city up to Saskatoon, town of about 100,000 people. And then I would get Modern Salon and all the industry magazines that would come out. And your father, Jamison Shaw, was everywhere. So the mere fact that, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that, what it's like just to have him. And even if you can give us a little, I read on some of the things that he went to Paris and studied under Antoine. Now, is that where all of the French cutting and the French style of hairdressing came from? I'm grabbing at straws here, but I'm trying to put two and two together.
Well, yeah, yes and no. I mean, my dad has an 8th grade education. I mean, he's, he does a lot of those fishing stories, right? I caught a fish and the fish keeps growing. So I'm not really sure how all that got started, but really the love of French cutting has been ingrained in me for my whole career. My father was a competition hairdresser. Yes. I don't know if you know that, Chris. But,
oh, no, I knew. He world champion.
Yeah, so with all of that, he was the first American to win the world championship for the Marcel iron, which nobody even knows how to use anymore, coincidentally.
I do. I love that puppy.
But I mean, we're all got a spring iron, and, my dad had stove irons and all that, and, would drive carpool with, practicing the iron as he was driving me to school. Oh. But the reality is, I was really lucky to be raised and reared in this hair community by a world champion and a man that really sort of paved the way for so many people out there. I mean, the new generation doesn't even know what competition hairdressing is really to the level that it was back then. But I can just remember my father traveling his whole life on the road, doing shows, teaching for brands. And I basically just followed in his footsteps, just out of the love of everything that he was doing.
Yeah. Well, so let's go there. First of all, what was it like with having, let me ask you this first. Did you want to become a hairdresser? Was this something that I'll give you a little bit of my history. My kids both saw me working. They saw as we all do, everybody's listening out there. This is nothing new to even anybody listening or watching, that when you're a hairdresser, sometimes you're putting in 12, 14-hour days. Mm-hmm. And I think my kids mistook that work as opposed to loving what you do. And they both said that anybody that's working that hard, I don't want to do that. And so neither one of my kids are in the industry. Did you have two questions, two-parter? Number one, did you have something else you did before hair? And then second part of that, what was that like when you got into it, having a famous father?
Well, first and foremost, I did it for survival. I had a learning disability, and I always talk about, I feel like a broken record, but I think everybody really needs to know that it was my only choice. I was a creative person. I have dyslexia. I could barely pass school. So I literally cut hair in my locker room and trade for math homework, so that I could get through school. And so I've been cutting hair since I was 13 years old. Wow. And that was just a matter of survival. It was just my entrepreneurship at that moment, if you will. And, I remember the moment. I never went to beauty school, by the way. In Georgia, really? You don't have to go to beauty school. You can actually train an apprentice, which is kind of what I did, was the path of training under so many of the greatest of this industry. My father and my uncle being two of the greats, Horace Reckelbacker, all of those guys that were back in the day from Vidal on down. But the reality was, because I never went to college and I never went to beauty school, hair was all I knew. So you asked me, did I have another job? I was a cheerleader. Does that count? Or maybe a beer leader is a better thing to say. But anyway, with that being said, I just never knew anything else. I loved it so much. The industry was just so great. Now, you asked me, what was it like to be the daughter of a famous hairdresser? My father never thought he was famous, not for a day. He still doesn't. If you talk to him right now, he would deny. When somebody says you're iconic, he's like, whoa, okay. He doesn't even think he's famous, but he's like the E.F. Hutton of hairdressing. When he spoke, everyone listened. And to this day, people run up to me and tell me father stories. So it's really cool. I think we need to do one of these again and have you and your father on there. That would be so much fun. Just to go, because I was on, first of all, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and it's going to sound, I'm not tooting a horn, and you'll find out real quickly why after that. I was on the Canadian team going to the Canadian, the Olympics, the Hair Olympics, etc. And that was in Austria. And I think if there was some place around last, that's about where I would have come, where our team would have come in. So it was certainly not of your father's quality, but I do know that if people knew what went into competition hair and the practice, just the same as an athlete has to go through and practice and hours and hours and hours and hours of work just to perfect the muscle memory so you can do that look over and over again and it looks right. It's actually phenomenal. And I think the other thing that I find super interesting was, especially when we were training apprentices, we would train them on roller sets and etc. But not just putting a roller in the hair, training for competition with rollers. You have to be able to get the shape you want with moldings and the way that you put your bases of the curl in, etc. And it all relates to everything that you do each and every day with a brush.
And I think that if people could see that, practice that, that's why some of the greats were so great, especially when the industry changed. When it went from roller sets and then went into cutting, all of those people knew how to handle bases. They could make anything out of a blow dry that they would do with their cut. I just have the utmost respect for that.
Well, there's nothing new anymore. I think that would be something that you would say. Like, I remember my own father going into the garage and literally taking a thing and trying to shorten his scissors. Like he was trying to file his scissors down because he had barbering shears that were really long, and he was trying to make them short because the short scissor was the hot thing, because Vidal had cut off Twiggy's hair, and it was like, wow, everybody was
3.5
now
inch
there's
scissors.
nothing new. There's nothing new. But I think what you asked me was really about, what was it like being with a famous father? I took so much for granted back then that I didn't even know what I was around. I had no idea that these people were staying at my house that were so iconic.
Wow.
But I do remember the moment that things sort of shifted in my career, because I was always Candy Shaw, Jamison's daughter, right? Jamison Shaw's daughter. And I remember the moment that it was like, oh, you're Candy Shaw's father. You know what I mean? And it was like, when that happened, it was just kind of strange. I thought, wait, yeah, that's right. Like, now you are, my dad. Like, I've kind of moved on, and you're my dad versus I'm your daughter.
I know exactly.
Kind of
I was always Mary Baron's boy. That's why I moved. But what I loved about that story that you just told, it was almost like the passing of the torch. Here's the generation passing it to the next generation, but your son carries on the Jamison name as well, correct?
My son is in the business, but he's not a hairdresser. He runs all of our product line and our salon. I still work at the chair, which is something you should duly note. I was there today and ran over here. That's why I have hair like all over my jacket and everywhere, because I've had it all over my hands. And
why we wear black.
We wear black, it picks up everything but men and money. But anyway. But with that being said, we have a 50-chair salon in Atlanta, obviously my dad's name. So we were huffing and puffing today, having a great day. Started my day teaching class, doing what I love. My son is in the industry. His wife is my top producer in the salon. I love that. I work with my husband, which is great. He's not a hairdresser, but he is an attorney. So it's really comforting, to sleep with counsel.
Yes.
Nice, because I don't ever have to worry so much about our business and all the trademarks and intellectual properties that you have to protect when you start a brand. But nonetheless, it's great. It's a family affair. We love it.
I'm glad you brought up your husband, because I was stalking, and I went on Instagram and I was looking back at some pictures, and I found 2 pictures that I want to set this first one up. And I was immediately drawn to this picture. I don't know if you've ever seen, I think it was on Instagram. There was this young couple getting married, and the bride says something, the groom says something, and she starts laughing, and she's laughing hysterically, church laugh. And she just can't regain it. And she's laughing all the way through. And it made me giggle every time. So Lee, if you can bring up that picture, I just want to know, this just reminded me so much of you with your father. And you almost, if I don't know if you've ever seen that clip, but if you haven't, look it up, because you look even like the girl that was there. And so tell me, what was going on here?
Well, first of all, how about that hair? Okay. I mean, I look at that, I'm like, oh my God, the 80s. But my hair is really curly. That's what people don't believe when they see the blunt bob. They're like, really?
Wow.
But my hair is super, super curly. My dad's hair is curly. So I have my hand in my dad's pocket. And I'm like, do you have any more money left? And he's like, I'm out of money. This was the most expensive wedding, He used to laugh every anniversary. I've been married to my husband for 35 years. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And he used to laugh that he's just every anniversary, he'd say, well, I just tore the last payment out of the coupon book to pay for your wedding, you know? So that's just me saying, do you have any more money left? And my hand's in his pocket. So
I love it. I just think it's such a great picture. And, and again, I continued on with the stalking, and I saw this one, so it obviously is on the same day, but I saw this grimace going on, and I understand. I hope you don't mind. I did a little Photoshop only because there was a lot of the glare from when you took the pictures of the from the wedding book, and I the way that I took that other stuff out, I wanted to give your husband a shape back rather than it just being black. But I want to know, what was the grimace about here? Because you went from this hysterical laughter. Now I see was this. What's this about?
Okay, so this was our dog, and our dog's name was Wee Wee, like French. Wee Wee.
Wee wee.
And they brought her to me in a hat box and gave her to me as a gift. And I didn't know that she was at our wedding. And of course, they put a bride veil on her. I mean, come on. And so I opened the hat box and my dog came out. And so I started crying.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It was so cute. They brought my dog to our wedding at, you're not
you had the dog before, that you had the dog before.
Yes.
That it's not that it was a surprise that I gave you
no, they didn't give me a puppy. No, it was our dog. And we obviously were crazy about our little Yorkshire Terrier. And I was missing her. Obviously, you're at a wedding, a venue in the weekend. And I had no idea that they had snuck her in for the weekend. And then they gave her to us at our wedding. And so I was crying.
That's a cry, not a grimace. So, but
I'm crying.
But
I guess cry. I am kind of grimacing, like, you poor thing, you've been in a hat box.
It was funny. So let me ask you this. How many people was it? Was it a big wedding, a small wedding? What was it? I'm assuming it was 35 years of payments. It must have been.
Yes, it was a big wedding by standards at that moment and that time. I mean, I don't know, some of these Indian weddings that you could do now have 600 and 700 people at them. But I mean, I think it was probably like 250 people back then.
Yeah.
But you have to realize, I mean, we are Atlanta staples. So my father, if he was inviting like everyone, the dry cleaners, the people that cleaned our pool. I mean, it was like, stop.
Yeah.
Nowadays, actually, one of our sons is getting married. I have 3 children, and our middle son is getting ready to get married. And it's really funny. Like, I look at the guest list now, and it's really all their friends.
Yeah.
And a few of ours. It's a lot different than it used to be. Your parents used to have a spectacle for them. Like, come watch my child get married. And I think that's all changed now. I think everybody does it a lot differently. Thank goodness.
I remember when Rita and I got married, and I'll say that was more than 3 years ago. But I remember Mom she was a hairdresser, didn't have tons of money, but Rita and I put together our guest list, and we had with the aunts and the uncles and all of the friends and the friends of friends. And we lived in that small town of Humboldt, Saskatchewan. So about 3/4 of the people from Humboldt was there. And we gave the guest list to my mother, and single parent, and she looked at it and went, okay. And because I know we must probably had, 100, 150 people that were invited to it. And she said, look, you can have that if you want, but if you do that, I can't afford to give you any gift. So she said, but if you have a small wedding, I'll make sure that your rent is paid for the first while for your apartment. I'll buy all your furniture, and I'll put all the furnishings into your apartment. And we went, done. So we ended up, I think there was a total of about 38 people at our wedding. And some of the people had to be there that were uncles that had to be there. But the point is, I can only imagine now that now is kind of what we went through. It was just more important about having immediate friends and just being able to have a nice time and a good party.
Well, if anyone's listening, take the money
And run.
if I had it to do over again, I would have taken the money.
Just take the money and elope, for God's sake.
Yeah. I mean, these weddings are insane.
Yeah. So so I want to switch it kind of, you got with your family's all involved. What happened? Like were you always a teacher? What happened to how did you get involved in education? So you're successful behind the chair. What came first, the teaching and then the product line, or was it the product line and then the teaching? What happened?
Well, I like to think of myself as an education company because I was always an educator that created a product instead of a manufacturer that decided to get a product, make a product, and then find an educator to teach on behalf of that product.
Right.
Education has been something that my uncle and my father, were all along at Jamison Shaw Hairdressers, and back when it was Jamison and Don Shaw Hairdressers, when they were partners.
Yeah.
And it was all about, training and growing your own staff. As I said to you before, you don't have to go to beauty school in Georgia.
Right.
So we grew our own crop. So teaching was part of the birth, or not the birth, but the fabric of who we were. Our whole, I don't ever know it not being that. So I was always an educator for our own salon. That morphed into starting to teach for Intercoiffure members, which, I would go and teach in other salons because I was, I guess, pretty good at it, and people enjoyed it. And then, one thing led to another. And what people don't know about me was French cutting was something I was teaching long before I was teaching about the power of the paintbrush and, balayage. So a lot of people know me as the Ballet Llama, but really cutting was my real first love. So, but back with a vengeance is cutting. And that's what my classrooms are packed with now because, we've all kind of gotten a lot of education in balayage. And so now we're focusing more on the art of the haircut, which I think, long beach waves and curls are going to go away. And these the younger generation needs to know how to do an incredible short haircut or bob or other types of looks. So really, ultimately, I've always been an educator. And I think that just comes from I cannot, like the greatest thing that ever happened to me was IKEA, right? When they had a picture and then they said, take A, put it with B, and you'll get C. Like that's how I learned. So because I learned like that, that's why I love so much teaching, because I just feel like that's how the creative mind can really grasp.
Exactly. There was something I just had in my brain. It was right there at my flailing age. It's gone. But the reality is I know what it was. You hit on what I think is a really critical point right there. And you said that hair cutting is making its way back. And that some of the things that we're doing currently that are making a lot of people a lot of money, but still things are changing. And I really want to get onto that, because if there's probably people that are out there right now that listening to this, watching it, and then saying, well, what does that mean to me? What do I need to do? Would you agree? This is things that I've noticed when I've got out there is people are terrified of short hair. They're not everybody. I don't want to paint everybody with the same brush. But the reality is there's people that are out there that are afraid of cutting, and particularly we own a chain of beauty schools, and they're terrified of men's hair, because that's even with fades and things as such, they're really terrified of doing that. What would you tell people that they should do right now so that they keep up with what's going on and they stay like I don't think that people have to be 1,000 miles ahead of everything, but just to stay one step ahead? What would you tell people to do now for cutting?
Well, first of all, beauty school and training is not all on the internet. I would say to get in a classroom where you can actually smell the energy that you put into the hair. I mean, I know that sounds so crazy. It's just like getting that hands-on experience, I think, is what I'm finding that, I mean, I have folks in my classroom. I had 7 students that flew in to spend the day with me today. And 5 of them were from schools. One was an 18-year veteran. One was a 10-year veteran. And they paid to shadow me and stand around. And what I love about that is it really shows people fundamentally how you can work at the chair to not only earn a better living, but have a better life. And so I would say to you, if you're out there and you're struggling or you're trying to look for some answers, find what it is you're not good at and go find the class that can help overcome those insecurities that you have, and go out and practice it and get reignited with your craft. I mean, I think the art of hairdressing, people have like 5 haircuts, and they just do them all day long, 5 versions of those 5 haircuts. And it's really boring. It's laboriously boring. I mean, for me, I want to teach people not a haircut. I want to teach people how to cut hair. There's a big difference. So
the understanding.
I would say if you're out there, try to find somebody that can mentor you. That's why we both love Beauty Changes Lives so much. And so many other organizations that are out there that allow people like you to coach and me to coach, and just to really find that person that you connect with that can sort of reignite your soul.
Yeah. And I think people, just from talking to you right now, I think people can tell that you care. I think that, and I might have been just my background, but I think when people trained, I'm just going to say a few years ago, like if you can imagine me younger. So right after Dirt, then there was me young. But the training that happened back then was not necessarily what you'd call safe. It was always about, I'm the teacher, you're the student, and you shall do what I say, and you can't hang around with me, you can't do anything with me because I am the teacher. But I think what's I'm noticing nowadays, like people like you, like Sam, like other people that are out there that really care about our industry, is that whether you're teaching to 5, 10, or 10,000, they've got a sense that they're safe in your environment. Because the reality is that when you're coming to a class, and I loved what you said about that, you've got to just get out and do it, because you're never going to learn what it is until you make a mistake at it. And the beautiful thing is if you got your mentor, a coach, or somebody that's teaching you that cares about you in the room with you, you make a mistake and they can help you get through it, so you don't feel like you're having your soul torn out while they correct you on it. Is this making sense? I think it
makes complete sense. I think that as an educator now, there used to be education was the teacher demands.
Right.
Now the teacher, in my book, commands. There's a difference. And they can command you to learn and have a love of learning again. I mean, you want to talk about getting out there and really getting fuel to your soul. I mean, these students came in town. I took them to dinner. I took them to my son's house last night. Had appetizers with them, took them to dinner, took them to Jenny's ice cream, had ice cream with them, and just asked them questions like, what is your fear? What are the things that you struggle with? Where are your hot buttons? What makes you happy? How are you fulfilled? Like the biggest hot topic right now is self-care, right? What frustrates me about that, however, Chris, is like now nobody wants to work at it. Right. They're like, okay, well, I don't want to work Saturday. I don't want to come in early. I don't want to stay late. I don't want to do this. I don't want to. No. I mean, yet you want to be successful. You can't demand that. You have to learn to command your career in a way that, yes, you own your time, and yes, you can call your shots, but at the same time, you still have to put the work in, to get good. Yeah. You can't just walk up and go, well, I work at a great salon and I expect y'all to pack my book and I expect you to keep me busy. That's kind of falls on us. So I feel like as an educator, I try to teach with love and kindness, but I hug them and I spank them a bit. I tell them the truth. I tell them the truth. Like, if I'm going to tell you that's great and it's not, I'm not doing you a service.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I love what you're saying, because especially when you're talking about the command, and I wrote that down, and I promise you, I will always give you credit for that. I think that what I loved about you said is that command, and I think it's about a strategy, right? Mm-hmm. You have to think about, whenever I'm talking to people about getting what they want out of their business, is I tell them to try and think way ahead, and some people don't only want to think about the now, but let's face it. Do you want to be 60 years old, still doing the same haircuts behind the chair, and just regretting coming into work every morning? Or do you want to set up a strategy, command your career by, yes, you might have to give up a little bit of that time and energy right now, but if you strategize it properly and you're taking that money that you make and you're setting some of that aside, so you're actually creating something that you can either A, invest in, B, start your own business if that's the investment you want, or C, just be able to put away money so you can take care of your family. Mm-hmm. I think we'd all agree, whether you're a family of one or a family of 10, your job in life is to take care of your family. And you can't do that spending all the money that you make or just having a fun weekend every time just because it seems the cool thing to do.
Right. Living paycheck to paycheck. It's true. I say that often. I mean, I don't ever really focus on the money. I focus on myself. And if I focus on the self, the money sort of comes. Now, look, I didn't sign up to be a starving artist either. I mean, let's face it. We didn't sign up saying, oh, we're so creative, so it's okay for us to be dead broke and live from paycheck to paycheck. No. I mean, I run my chair like a business. I run my salon like a business, my academy like a business, my product line. I look at those things, but I also know that I have the ability to love what I do. And I have the choice. I make those choices, not to be cynical about it, not to be angry because I have to work hard. I say all the time when I'm on social media, and it's like rant over, I say, whoa, time out. You signed up for this. You signed up to own your own suite. You signed up to have your own business. You signed up to be a salon owner. Don't you gripe at this. You just need to find better solutions to command your career so that you can ultimately have the success that you're seeking. Don't be so angry at all the reasons why. Yeah, there's going to be frustrating moments. Of course. My dad has a lot of sayings, and this is maybe not too good for the podcast, but
it'll be fine for the podcast.
My dad used to say, hey, being a bird ain't all singing and shitting from high places. Okay. And basically, it's like, if you want to fly to the top of your tree, great, but it's not all going to be singing up there. You're going to have some things that are going to happen. And I feel that we owe it to ourselves to have, I'm tired of making excuses for people for what I do. I don't want to walk in a party and have to lie and say, oh, I'm a beauty consultant, because I'm not proud to say I'm a hairdresser. Right. And I'm a dang good one, actually. Yeah. And come on over and, check out what we do here. My father used to lie when I was a kid to people, not lie in a purposely way. He would just tell a fib. He'd say, oh, yes, I'm a consultant. Yeah. I'm a consultant, because he didn't want to tell people he was a hairdresser, because they would think he had lost his mind. Like, why are you in this industry? Yeah. It's the greatest industry in the world.
Exactly. Because where else can you go that you can literally write your own ticket to make the amount of money that you want to make? That's what I just can't get over with people. What they sign up for jobs, professionals, whatever profession, but they get hooked into it. And you can just make six figures so easy. And that's everybody in our industry gets lumped into this thing where, oh, you poor dear, you're probably only making about 25 G's a year. And I always want to go, hey, do you want to put out your tax return and I'll pull out my tax return and we'll have a little, as a matter of fact, I had to have that conversation that was somewhat like that with a gentleman who was one of the CEOs for United Airlines when I was having a conversation with him on a plane. And he was in great depth telling me about what he did. And he asked me what I did. And I said, I'm a hairdresser. And it was like the end of the conversation. And, that's when I wanted to go like, listen, let's pull out yours. Let's pull out my tax return and see what this is. If you're just doing it from a money standpoint, and I'll bet I enjoy my job a hell of a lot better than you do yours.
Well, I mean, my husband works in our company now because he had one of those high-powered attorney jobs, worked for this largest law firm in the Southeast. I'll just put it to you this way. They handle, Coca-Cola and, big things, right? And one day he turned over and he said, I am so tired of you getting out of the bed every morning so happy. Like I go to work and I am miserable. He's like, I'm just so sick of it. And I said, okay, well, how about if I make you a job offer? And so he likes to tell everybody that why is he not practicing? He still practiced law, but not obviously for a large corporation. And he said, yeah, my wife gave me an offer I couldn't refuse and I've never been happier, and it's just, happiness is where it's at, quit counting your coins, just do the right thing and the coins and, the bees will follow. You'll be fine.
Yeah. And what I like that you said was just about, because it is, I think people that if you're just going after the money, it's not going to be there, but you still have to have good business savvy, and that's why I tell people I don't care whether you're in a suite, whether you're in, you've got a multi-million-dollar business, you need a business coach. Get business coaches or people that can tell you what you need to do and be straight up with you about what you need to do to grow and scale. I think that's really
it's just another zero. So think about it, Chris. Yeah. Like if you're in a suite and you're struggling and you're saying, oh my gosh, where am I going to get the $1,000 to pay for that? Well, it's just another zero. I'm looking at where I'm going to get the $10,000 to pay for that, or the $100,000 to pay for that, or you know what I mean? Everybody has the same problems.
Yeah,
we're not. True. Money makes you more of what you already are.
Right.
So I have the same problems as anyone has. They're just scaled at a different level. So don't think that we all reach a pinnacle of success and we're there and it's like, okay, it's great. I'm so successful now. I don't have any problems. No, your problems just get bigger.
That's right.
More zeros.
What were some, I want to dig onto some of those. What were some of the things that really, I can tell you some of the things when they happened and I just wanted to go back to my home, crawl into bed, get my wubby, pull it over, stick my thumb in my mouth, go into a fetal position. But we know we have to work through them. Was there things in your life as you went through to get to where you are now?
Well, I love to tell the story behind Sunlights because I kind of created this product really out of a need and a niche. And I had a dream that I could create this lightener that had clay in it. I'm from Georgia, so the natural resource is red Georgia clay. So I thought, oh my gosh, maybe I could put clay in a lightener and paint hair with it and it wouldn't be dusty and all this great stuff. So I go to the manufacturers and I say, hey, I got this idea. I've already come up with this concept. This is what I'm going to do. This is how it should be done. I've been painting hair for 25 years. Let me show you. And they looked at me and they said, crickets.
Yeah.
And they said, nah, balayage is just a trend. No, I don't think this is going to work. And I was so deflated. I literally got in a taxi. That just tells you how long ago it was because there was no Uber. And I did stick my thumb in my mouth for a minute and I cried to the airport. And I thought, I cannot believe nobody believes me. What is wrong with them? I have been dreaming this up for 2 years. I've been in R&D with a chemist. I know this is going to work. And no one believed me. Yeah. Like I always say, I built a foundation on all the no's of the bricks that were thrown at me. It's like all the no's. As a matter of fact, if you haven't told me no, Chris, you're probably a nobody.
Yeah. Here.
Because everyone has told me no. And I was just like, no, I can do this. I can do this. So I took 50 grand of my own money on a whim. I was scared out of my mind. And I thought, okay, it's like shooting the craps table in Las Vegas. I'm just going to take this money. And all I could think was, okay, if it doesn't work out, at least my own salon can take all this product that I just ordered.
Right.
And we can use it in our salon. And I just remember thinking in that moment, I might have just done the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. And I might have just done the smartest thing I ever done in my life, and there's just nothing more disheartening to live in that kind of fear that you have really stuck your neck out. But, scared money doesn't make money. And, if you don't take a risk, there's no reward. The greater the risk, the greater the reward. And not that I say it because I beat my chest over it, because I could have very easily failed, but I was taught by my dad my whole life, if you lose, don't lose the lesson. There's always a lesson. And I just knew that if I lost, there would be a lesson there, and God would protect me. I would be okay. And at the end of the day, it was just $50,000, and I know that sounds like a lot, but to somebody else, it might be 5,000, anyway, it's been a great ride. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been really amazing. The biggest thing I've loved about doing this is making my father proud.
Yeah.
Really.
Wow. A great man. I love where you were going. It's interesting how things that somebody says tweaks what just happened in that day for you. We were having our team was having a meeting with our business coach this morning, and we're making some decisions right now that, require, some thought. And he said these words to me, and I might mess them up a little bit, but he said, but when you get to the point of the largest resistance, that's at that moment is when you're just about to have a breakthrough. So you've got to get to that point where you put in your own resistance, but you got to come through it. And when you do that, you're going to have a breakthrough on the other side, and you'll never be the same again. You'll always be better in what you do. So
that's great. I love that.
God bless you for that. Where did now Sunlights and the Bali Lama, was that coined on you? Did it come from somewhere where, I see you as all, you're an entrepreneur, you're a mom, you're working behind the chair, you're an educator, Bali Lama. Lee and I, my son, were talking about this just before the program, and he went, that's probably one of the best handles I've ever seen.
Well, actually, a student named me. You think about the Dalai Lama, so it was the Bali Lama. And I think, honestly, if I'm just kind of having a humble moment, it's really hard for me to say anything, of why. But I felt like I give a lot in my classrooms spiritually, and really trying to get in the trenches with people and make them the stars and make them the ones who really can believe in themselves again. I really pride myself in turning the key for somebody who really needs that extra leverage and love and maybe has been told no, or, I spend a lot of time in my classrooms sharing those stories of my no's and my falls and my screw ups and my terrible mistakes. And so one of my students one day, they were just said, you're like the Bali Lama, you're just like the Bali Lama. And that was like right at the time that Instagram was coming out, and everybody thought, well, let's find a cute handle. Looking back on that now, I'd probably just be Candy Shaw, because a lot of people don't get it, and I'm a lot more than just a painter. I do a lot of other things, but in the moment, everybody was coming up with these cute handles. And so I said, hey, how about the Bali Lama?
But I think that it's almost like where the the handle and the name goes synonymous. I think one is one, because you very few have, a handle that people call you and it transcends into becoming what everybody knows. It's almost like Cher, just one name, but the Bali Lama, I went, yes, she is. Yes, she is.
Well, thank you. I take it very seriously how people feel about me. And that is, something that I will go to my grave always being so humbly proud of how I have left this industry in a better place than I found it. And I think that's probably my reward, is that if somebody does see me and they're like, oh my gosh, you're the Bali Lama. And I'm like, look, I don't take myself so seriously. I am not some, Queen of Sheba over here. I just am a hairdresser like you that had a dream, that was an entrepreneur, that overcame obstacles, that still loves her craft. And, and I hope that I just celebrated 40 years. It's a big deal. And I love it. I love it. Yeah. Everyone always asks me, why are you still at the chair? And I'm like, my God, are you kidding me? Like, that is the greatest thing for me. I love it. And it keeps me relevant as an educator. I know what Sally's like. I know what Susie's like. Yeah. I know what it's like to deal with the things that you're dealing with. And so I still love that part of my business. I don't think I can ever give it up, even though I don't need to do it. I don't need to work at the chair. I just love it. Yeah. I don't want to give up on my industry.
I think that that's critical. Is when you know what's going on, and we're going to be showing some of your work as we're talking about this in here. But what I love about your work is that there's work that is commercial that looks like everybody else's, and then there's commercial work that still that is stunningly beautiful and different with something in it. And that's what I was looking at that particularly. I looked at a picture of you cutting a blonde, and I'm assuming it's the same girl, the one that has this little undercut. And I think she's got that yellow, God knows why you put yellow in her hair. But she has that yellow piece in the front, really short blonde with that yellow in it. And I went, see, that's stunning, and it always gets me when people say that you have to have long hair. Nothing against long hair, but that you have to have it to look feminine, because that is such a strikingly beautiful, strong look on that beautiful girl. And I just think congratulations to you that you can bring that beauty, femininity, and strength to a woman or a gentleman. I
love that you said that. And that is the greatest compliment you could ever give me, Chris. And the reason why is because I have never lost sight that I am in the beauty industry. I'm not in the freak show industry.
Right.
I'm not looking for, the shock value. There's a place for that on the show stages and competition work. And competitions. It's fabulous. What you've done has been incredible. I've admired your work forever. And that's the place that it lives, and I know where I live, and I know my lane, and I'm in my lane, and I'm okay with my lane. I can't be Chris Baran.
Yeah.
I can't be Sharon Blaine.
Right.
I can't be some of these folks that can, Nicholas French. You guys are like, you want to talk about holy? I mean, my gosh, these people that are incredibly talented, and not to say this to be morbid, but it's a dying breed, and it scares me to death, because I think, oh my gosh, are we never going to have classic hairdressers anymore?
Yeah.
Are we never going to have beautiful avant-garde work anymore? Is everything going to be, you know what I'm saying? I mean, so that's why your compliment about that work, that's why I love French cutting, is because it is so feminine. It's so timeless. It's so classic. It's things that could be, I won't even tell you that that hair was done probably 10 years ago, and it
Yeah.
still looks as relevant today as it could, 10 years ago.
And I'm confident. I think that our industry has taken an interesting turn. I'm just going to call it that. But I'm really confident that it's going to come back and to, I don't like the word precision, but to do quality work that has a foundation that can be replicated and like examples. And I think that's where what is going to change it is getting the youth involved that understand how to create those things and understand. Like, I'll give you, for instance, Sam and I were doing a seminar in LA just this last weekend, and just to take people that there was one gentleman that was in the class with us complaining about carpal tunnel, and we spent probably half an hour with him just getting him back to learn how to hold a pair of scissors so that they're straight in your hand and you're not cramping and bending. And he had said he had been to doctors, etc. And probably what happened in there was just being able to spend that half an hour to straighten this out. It's not going to probably cure his carpal tunnel, but it will help him. And just to give people the why behind things and the understanding of doing it properly. I always equate, like, when you watch people like I don't know, you may or may not know, I always say Kenny Burke was an artist that worked with us. But when he was Sassoon trained, and when you watched him cut, it was like watching a ballerina dancer. It was just so beautiful to watch him flow. And when you see people that can really cut hair, and like yourself, and you're doing this work, and it's like a dance, not because it's theatrical, but it's because it's correct. And it looks so beautiful because all of the foundations that you learn are there to protect your body, to make it easy to do. And quite frankly, if you don't know how to do it, it just looks good. It looks like watching beautiful dance,
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, I teach that if your body position, hand position, shoulder position, scissor position is correct, even if your head position, meaning what's in your head, is not, you look better and more confident. Therefore, you will perform better and more confident. Part of the challenge in hairdressing is we fight a mirror all day long. Think about it. And that mirror is that third party that comes into play when you are working at your chair as a stylist. That mirror is somebody who doesn't lie. He or she shows your sins, shows if you don't dress well, shows if you're talking behind someone's back. That mirror tells every detail of your shortcomings. And so when young kids get out of school and that mirror is like the devil looking at them. They're like, and that's why they turn the guest away. They turn things away because they're so nervous. So if I can teach people how to step on a stage, which is obviously right behind your chair, right, and be able to look in the mirror with confidence, then I can plug in the necessary tools to understand shape and balance and fabric, and I know that sounds kind of interestingly weird, but I just think there's not enough psychology of hairdressing that is taught out there that folks can take away. Now, this is no offense to any schools, because I'm in the schools constantly teaching. I teach constantly in the beauty school environment, and I love it. It's just one of my favorite things in the world to do. But, teachers can't teach you that awareness. They can't teach you how to run a better business and how to look in that mirror with confidence. So, for your listeners out there, challenge your mirror more, face it and stand in it and stand with confidence, dress better, look better, be better. My buddy, Wen Claybaugh, I love to quote this quote in his book, Be Nice or Else. Wen is a really great friend of mine. And he always says, be better, not bitter.
Yeah.
and I love that,
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can just get our industry better and not so bitter, I think we're going to be better, honestly.
I agree. Because sometimes it's just about, it's the jealousy that goes on. The FOMO, I fear of missing out. I want what you have, but I can't have what you have, but I can have the best of what I have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a critical part of our business. It's why I love our buddy Sam is being able to say, look at it's, we're hairdressers. We got to help one another. And it's, like we all love our brands and our manufacturers, whether it's our own, whether it's other people, but hairdressers have to help other hairdressers. We're the ones that are going to make sure that we get our education and we get to be better by what we learn from one another.
Absolutely. I've taken a nugget away from every single great educator out there. And I still go to class. I'll never stop going.
Yeah. I think the teachers often make the best students, I think. Mm-hmm. I'd love to find out you've been on the road a lot. Yes.
Can you see these bags?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm on the road Vaseline a lot.
And that doesn't help on me. But the interesting stories that happen to you, like for me, I just think about when we used to just sit around and tell war stories at the shows beforehand. We'd get together with the hairdressers around them, and I'm just trying to remember I can remember going. Oh, I remember going into doing a seminar at this. I was doing a seminar at this salon, and I was teaching them how to do just a broomstick bob. Like no tension. Everything was broomstick, just so it sat down perfectly straight, and taking it down in these really super small sections. And the hair was dark, and I was cutting it. And I think I can't remember if I layered a fringe first or did something on that. But I can remember having my comb and how when you cut hair and you can see some little hair cuttings that fall on the scalp. And I didn't want to blow to get rid of them on the scalp because I figured that would be rude and unsanitary. So as I'm talking to it, and now I'm on stage talking to people and talking to the audience, and it's a small crowd, and they're gathered right around with their feet on the stage. And so I'm just trying to do this to get rid of this hair flex. And so I had somebody working on the side with me, and they kept looking at me like, what's going on? And then I finally picked up the hair. You know how you'll pick up the hair and just bend it to see what's going on? And out of this hair clipping, these legs came and grabbed onto the hair. And I freaked. I just didn't know what to do. So I remember being there, and I went, well, now I didn't want to put my hands in the hair anymore. And so I remember I said, all this hair on top, now this broomstick, it should be just taken and elevated up. We want some softness on the top layers. And I just cut that off. And then I said, and this blow dry, and I went over to them and I went, this person has a box in her hair. And so I took my blow dryer and I said, you got to make sure no tension when you blow dry this. And I'm doing this. And in the meantime, she went down and sat by the front of the stage. And as these hair pieces are falling over, she's trying to get these things off, thinking it might be this thing, whatever it was. I never did find out what it was. I'm assuming it was probably just a, what do you call them? The
lice?
No, it wasn't lice. It was, oh, come on. They often live in trees and they just plant their head in your skin.
Beetles.
Well, something like that, whatever the hell it was. Anyway, I just remember getting off of there and I just felt like I had them all over me by the time I was done. Weird stories that have happened to you.
Well, gosh, I mean, after you shared that, it reminded me of a weird story. I was cutting a model's hair on a stage one time, and I brought the length up, and she had a bee tattoo on the back of her neck, and I did not know that. And the minute I saw it, I started hitting it with my towel, thinking that she had a bee or a wasp on her neck. So I had totally forgotten about that. The worst thing that's ever happened to me was I was doing a class and realized and I'm sure it's happened to colorists out there, that I was painting the live model with the 10 volume and that I use on my mannequin head instead of the 40 volume that I use on live models. So here I was going to try to show them how my product performed, and and I didn't realize it until I was already finished that I had mixed it, with the wrong thing.
No.
So I had to kind of come clean. But what was really funny was that the hair still looked great, but you're always going to get those little funny stories.
Little trickles going down your back into areas we don't want to talk about.
Little sweat drips for sure.
Yeah. Well, listen, there's a couple things I just want to ask you before we sign off here. Is that if you had one wish that you could grant our industry, not for any fulfillment for you and I, but just for the industry as a whole, what would you wish for?
Wow, that is such a loaded question, because I feel like I would just wish that we could all, I think it's important that I am friends with every salon owner in my city. I literally am. I have a salon owners association. We meet, we go to dinner, we talk on the phone. I just wish that we could blur the lines between competition and really just elevate and help each other. There's enough hair to be had in every city. Back in the day when my dad was doing business, it was all about, I'm not going to share my trade secrets because I wouldn't want anyone to know how I did that. So my wish would be that we could all just, give with our hands down instead of with our hands up, expecting something in return.
Yeah.
And that we could just blur the lines and just all literally help each other.
Yeah, I love that. Give with your hands down as opposed to up. That's amazing. And again, I'm going to ask you actually one, this just came to my brain here right now, because I'm getting to know you more and more, and I want to come and hang out in Atlanta.
Well, I'm waiting. I've been telling you can use my academy.
Just come on out
and teach us a class and have tons of people here.
I would love that. But if somebody doesn't know you, if you were an author of a book, and the book was written about Candy Shaw, and you had to tell the story of who Candy Shaw was as a person, what would you say?
That I am, to a fault, a great lover of people, and I, to a fault, love so hard sometimes that it ends up hurting me. My weakness is allowing the lack of affection of others to affect me, and to taking that personally sometimes. That's probably my one thing. But I think if you were to ask my friends, describe Candy Shaw in 3 words, I think the first word would be hardworking. I never stop. I think the second word would be very giving. And the third word would be someone who is a visionary that constantly looks at what she can do better. And how she can be better. I talk about my takeaways every single day of my life. Like, what could I do better? Why, what did I learn from this moment? And I think that people that really know me know that I am all about, the learn, what I've always got my learn on.
Yeah. And last thing, there's, so many times when people just can't let go of something, or something that that people would just listen or watch. If anybody was listening or watching right now, what would you tell the listeners and the people that are watching right now that they should either do or they should let go of?
Well, I always say that some of the best decisions I ever made in my life were the ones I didn't. And so I would say to folks that if you're struggling with decisions in your life, to just let go and let love, and just try to not always have an answer, because sometimes there is no answer.
Right.
And so I would definitely say that, some of the best decisions I ever made were the ones that I said no to, and I just didn't, because you can't be all things to all people. And that's the challenge of being a hairstylist, is you want to say yes to everything. But the power of no has carried me and my career in a way, not a negative no, not a, oh no, just a commanding my career and knowing when to say no, I think is really, truly freedom.
Yeah. Truer words. Well, I have my 3 words that I've got for you. I think when I think about Candy Shaw, especially the person that I've learned to know especially after this last, whatever it's been, 30, 40, 50 minutes, I don't know, is that visionary comes to my mind from the industry aspect as well. And I think leader, educator, and learner. That's where I get. And Candy, I can't tell you enough how much, number one, I have respect I have for you, and how
thank you.
Glad and grateful that I am that you've been on to share with the people that are listening and watching right now. So Candy, I do want to set another one of these up, and I want to have stories that I want to hear with you and your dad.
I love it. Nothing would give me greater privilege and to see my father's stories be heard, and certainly to this next generation, to not forget the forefathers that paved the way for all of them.
Bingo.
And Chris, right back at you, my friend. You're one of a kind. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to be heard, and to be able to just sort of share some of my stories. It's been an absolute blast.
Absolutely. And the next time is going to be with us over a glass of wine.
In Atlanta, buddy. In Atlanta. You have to go through Atlanta to go anywhere. Sam will even come up for it. He'll drive up.
We'll make it happen. Candy Shaw, I love you. I adore you.
Thank you
so much for being on the program with us. Thank you very much. And I promise I will be down there to visit and have that glass of wine.
I would love it. Have an awesome day. And thanks for listening, everyone.